Hello everybody and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Character Spotlight. And for this week's Character Spotlight, we're going to be taking a look at Beast, one of the original X-Men characters in this game. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into things here. Starting out with his defensive stats, he's coming in with a 4-2-3 defensive line. So he's kind of got a clear weak side there, a clear strong side, and then he's kind of in the middle for Mystic. He's going to be coming in with 6 stamina as a 3 threat, so nothing too crazy here and there. You know, he's got the Venom stat line and all the kind of obvious drawbacks that come with that. But then 6 stamina is pretty nice. He's a size 3, so he's a little bit harder to be thrown around, but you do have to be careful when he's being thrown at your team. And he's got a medium move on a medium base, which does make him fairly mobile as well. So yeah, not a bad start here. Going into his attacks, he's got 2. The first one is Acrobatic Strike. This is going to be a range 3 5-dice builder. It's going to cost you 0 power, and you're going to gain power based on the damage that you deal. And it's going to have a wild ambush trigger. After this attack is resolved, place this character within range 1 of the target character. So yeah, this is a pretty neat attack in a couple ways. Obviously, it gives you that wild ambush, being able to put yourself onto your opponent's point if they're sitting on an objective or something like that. You can use that to get in position for that. You can use it to get in position for your second attack, or maybe you want to move or something like that. But the kind of downside to this is that it is not a maze. So if you're the one sitting on a point and you go to punch someone who's not sitting on a point, and you roll that wild, you do have to place yourself. So a little bit of a downside there if you're not careful and you roll the wild when you don't want to. But otherwise, it is very useful to just kind of be able to get that a little bit of extra action economy there and place yourself onto their point, and maybe have some other targets or something like that as well. So yeah, solid builder attack here. The next one he has is Animalistic Freestyle. This is a 4-cost spender. It's going to be a range 2 6-dice physical attack, so he's all physical here. After the attack is resolved, if the target character gains the bleed special condition. So yeah, simple enough. Just gonna hand out that bleed automatically. Certainly nice. It's got wild. Before damage is dealt, if the target character is size 3 or less, he's gonna push them away small. This is certainly nice as well, just kind of being able to say, hey, get out of here. Before damage is really nice, because if you do daze someone with this attack as well, you still get to push them, so they're out of position and they're dazed, so it's a bit of a double win there. Definitely a nice thing to have. And then lastly, after the attack is resolved, he may advance medium. As far as spenders go, this one is solid. It has some control on it. It's got a condition, and it gives you movement, which are all very good things. I think it's definitely showing a little bit of its age here with being a 4-cost spender that only has 6 dice. I feel like if this were to be coming out today, it would probably have at least 1 or 2 more dice, or would be 1 cheaper. But overall, it's still a pretty good spender, and Beast has pretty decent power economy, so he doesn't mind paying for it when he's looking for that push or that extra advance off of the attack. So yeah, overall not a bad spender, but definitely a little bit on the pricier side for what it does. Going into his superpowers here, the first one he has is Baser Instincts. This is a active 2-cost superpower. Choose an interactive terrain feature or an enemy character, both of size 2 or less and within range 2, and throw it small. This superpower can only be used once per turn. And yeah, this is just good. I mean, it's a character throw, size 2 only, so something to keep in mind there. But character throws, turns out, are pretty good. It's going to be costing you 2 power, so you're not doing it right out the gate unless you're in an affiliation that can power you up. But being able to throw models is good. It's good for extra damage, and it's great for just, being able to say this point is mine. I'm going to acrobatic strike, I'm going to ambush onto your point, and then you're not going to be on it anymore. I'm going to toss you out of here. Definitely some rude things you can kind of do with that. So yeah, it definitely works great for his kit, kind of being able to jump him in and just displace your opponent's models. Next, he has his Stars and Garters. This is a reactive superpower that's an X cost. While this character is defending or dodging during the modified dice step, it can spend up to 3 power to use this superpower. For each power spent, this character may reroll 1 of its defense or dodge dice. And this is definitely nice for him. Being able to spend up to 3 to just give yourself some rerolls makes that 2 energy defense not feel quite as bad when you're being hit on the energy side, because if you can reroll them, your odds of blocking at least 1 go up pretty substantially. And it is one of the few defensive rerolls that works on dodges, so that's also really nice. With those 4 dice he already has, throwing things at Beast isn't necessarily a waste of time, but it's definitely not as efficient as throwing things at other characters, so that's pretty good. Next, he has Disconcerting Yet Provocative. This is a passive superpower that says whenever this character rolls dice, after the effect is resolved, it gains 1 power if it rolled at least 1 skull. And this is kind of where his main power economy comes from. Works pretty nicely with Stars and Garters because you're doing those rerolls, so you have a good chance of rolling into a skull there, and you kind of get something out of it. You basically get refunded the power you spent to reroll that die if you do roll a skull. So That definitely feels all right. And then, of course, with your attacks giving you some extra ways to build up some power. And yeah, just in general, nice to have something like that, especially on a character that has access to rerolls. And last but not least, he's got wall crawler, so he's definitely not going to be hindered by too much terrain when he needs to move around. And as we already mentioned, the medium move, medium base does make him pretty fast if he wants to run around and go try to, affect points further away on the board. He's definitely capable of doing that. Taking a look at the flip side real quick here, as far as I'm aware, not too much changes on Mr. Beast here. The biggest thing being that he does drop down to 5 stamina. So yeah, he's a little bit squishier on the flip side, but still not too bad. He still has those defensive rerolls and a really solid physical defense, which obviously is pretty important because physical is typically the most common attack type in the game, obviously depending on your matchup. Maybe not the best call into, say, Guardians or something like that, where there's tons of energy attacks flying around, but yeah, still, the 5 stamina, definitely squishier, but that doesn't make him squishy. Moving on from that, we're going to take a look at the affiliations he's a member of. He doesn't have any tactics cards, although we are going to be talking about his horseman cards. This is actually the first character in the series that's a horseman, or at least the first character that was a horseman when we did their video, because I think we've done some horsemen before. Anyways, moving on to affiliations, we're going to start out with Avengers, because he is a member of the Avengers team, and he definitely appreciates their leaderships a fair bit, and they definitely play to his style pretty well. The first one is Steve Rogers, the original core box Captain America, where you have the day like unlike any other. I almost said day like any other, and that's not exactly interesting. Each turn you may reduce the power cost of the first superpower used by each allied character by 1 to a minimum of 1. And this is definitely nice for Beast. He can use the throw turn 1 this way, so he could double walk onto a point and say, nope, this is my point now, I'm going to throw you off of it, and that's pretty nice. You could also use it to just squeeze out some damage if you want that early game. Also works really well if you can move and then punch someone on that point. You get that ambush trigger, place yourself on the point, and now you've got the, even if you didn't do any damage, you've got the power to be like, and you're off of this point. So you can do some kind of cool turn 1 things with him under Steve. As far as the bodyguard goes, it's nice being able to take, the odd energy hit for him. He doesn't necessarily need it too much on physical, but bodyguards are nice, so I suppose there is that. And they do operate at somewhat similar ranges depending on the map you're playing on, so they can kind of work together reasonably well if they need to. But I think the big thing he's getting from Steve is the leadership. The next leader here is Sam, and Sam's leadership is just fantastic, and he plays to Sam's playstyle really well. So for those who are less familiar, Sam's leadership basically says when one of your characters is dazed or KO'd, you're going to pick another one of your characters, they're going to heal 1, they're going to remove a condition, and they're going to get you advance. And this leadership is really good. Turns out being able to heal and move your characters out of sequence is fantastic. And Beast definitely appreciates this. With his defensive rerolls, he's no pushover, so he's going to get a little bit of extra value out of that healing, and when he does go down, the rest of your team is going to be able to benefit from that a little bit as well. And the small advance is certainly nice. That medium base, he's getting a little bit of extra mileage out of that as well. So yeah, this leadership works great for him, and he definitely plays the type of thing that kind of the traditional Sam spam list is looking for, of just models that aren't going to go down without a fight. And you can play kind of a very control focused list here. You got Sam with the shield pushes, and then you just have Beast kind of run around throwing people off points and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're trying to play kind of a more control-oriented Sam, definitely works pretty well for that. Next leader we're going to talk about here is Captain America First Avenger, of course Steve 3. And this is the Earth's Mightiest Heroes superpower. Once per turn, when you are attacking, you can, if you have a hit result in the attack roll, you can spend a power to change one of your other dice to any other result. This is an interesting one for Beast. I think there's a couple kind of ways you can approach this with Beast, although I do think it's probably his least favorite of the 3. You can do some kind of neat things with it. The main one being the ambush trigger that you have. You can kind of choose whether or not you want to have ambush, as long as you rolled at least 1 hit in the attack roll, because if you got the ambush trigger and you really don't want it, you can pay a power to actually turn your wild into just like a hit or something like that. Or alternatively, if you really want the wild trigger, you can turn a blank or a shield or something like that into a hit as well. And yeah, that's certainly a nice thing. Helps him get a little bit of extra damage out here and there as well, which is kind of cool. And if you really need the push on his spender, you can use it for that too. So it definitely gives you a few options. It's probably not his favorite of the leaderships, but it's definitely a neat one that he still interacts with in an interesting way. So yeah, definitely still solid for him, but probably not his first choice. As for the last one, that just being Hulkbuster, I mean, first of all, he doesn't actually really need this too much. I mean, it makes throwing stuff at him feel even worse, but he's already pretty good at taking dodges. Having 4 dice with rerolls is pretty good against dodges. So yeah, I mean, being able to reduce it more just basically means throwing things at Beast is kind of wasting your own time. But he does play to the Hulkbuster kind of playstyle. I don't know if playstyle is the right word here, but he plays kind of like Hulkbuster in the sense that he's very much a kind of more defensive, control-oriented piece rather than a piece that's just trying to murder things. And I think that's kind of the moral of the story here with all of these Avengers leaders is if they're running Beast, they're definitely trying to play a more control-oriented game. They're trying to run around, grab the points, throw other models off of them. And it's definitely a really fun way to play Avengers. I've definitely played that style of them before. So yeah, I think he's definitely got a home here if you're trying to play kind of a more control-oriented list. And could be a lot of fun, specifically I think under Steve 1 or Sam. The next affiliation we're going to be taking a look at is Inhumans, where, he gets in on the Inhumans affiliation on a technicality here. And here he's got access to 3 leaderships. We got Black Bolt, Maximus the Mad, and Medusa. We are, of course, going to be talking about the newer leaderships, even though they haven't actually released at time of recording or time of upload, I believe. So first one's first, we got Black Bolt here, which basically lets you pass power between your characters if they're within range 3 of each other. And yeah, this is pretty solid for him. Beast is definitely one of those models that can kind of live in feast or famine mode. If he's got a lot of power, he's going to feel great. He's going to have those defensive rerolls online, so he's going to be annoying to take down. He's going to have his throw. He'll have the occasional spender. Definitely feels pretty good. If he doesn't have too much power, he's going to probably not be feeling as good. He's going to go down quickly because he won't have those defensive rerolls, especially against energy attackers and things like that. He definitely really wants to make sure he's got the power for that throw. So you can kind of, first of all, you can kind of do some of the turn 1 things you could do with Steve here. You can throw some extra power on him to make sure he can like double walk and throw turn 1 and stuff like that. And then as the game goes on, you can kind of decide, is Beast sitting on 10 power? Well, he certainly doesn't mind passing some out. Has Beast spent all of his power and desperately needs 1 more to be able to throw someone? Being able to toss that his way is definitely appreciated. So yeah, I mean, Black Bolt's leadership definitely works pretty well for him, specifically if you are trying to play that kind of more control-focused X-Men at home style Inhumans list, which you definitely can do, even though Black Bolt himself usually lends more towards being an attrition piece. Beast definitely can play well in a kind of objective Inhumans list here. Taking a look at the other 2 here, we have Maximus the Mad, whose leadership basically makes you re-roll a die, and if you get a skull, you're going to be placed within one of your current position, but of course you're re-rolling a die, so there's the benefits of that. And stacking re-rolls is certainly a nice thing. Re-rolling into a skull definitely is a little awkward. Beast does like the extra power he gets. He gets refunded, or not even refunded because this one doesn't cost any power, but he gets a power back from it if he does roll a skull. But being put out of position, and with that medium base, meaning you're kind of further out of position than a small base model would have been, definitely something that doesn't feel amazing, but I mean, the reroll is nice. Giving him an offensive reroll can also be really, really nice. A good way to get out of your own ambush trigger if you really don't want it, or to fish for it if you're looking for it. So yeah, there's definitely some pros and cons to this. Rerolls in general are pretty good for him. It's just, of course, that downside is not ideal for him when it does come up, because he doesn't always have the most consistent mobility in the world. So, that might force you into a move action or something like that down the line. The last leadership here is Medusa's, and unfortunately it's not shown on the card here, but basically it's centered around dazing or KOing enemy models, and Beast isn't exactly the best for that, so it's probably his least favorite leadership in the affiliation. That said, him and Medusa play very, very well together, just in, again, kind of that more X-Men at home style Inhumans list where you're trying to play more of a control-y, objective-focused game. Medusa and Beast can definitely work well together, like, say, under Black Bolt or something like that to do a lot of fun kind of movement and mispositioning your opposing models sort of game plan. So definitely a fun model to pair him with, but maybe not so much on the leadership. We're going to jump over Servants of Apocalypse. We're going to do them last because we're going to be looking at the Horseman cards. So for now, we're going to take a look at Uncanny X-Men, where he's got access to 3 different leaderships here. The first one is going to be Cyclops, which is probably his least favorite of the leaderships here, just because it's all centered around dealing damage to enemy characters, and that's not really what he's best at. He's throwing 5 dicers without mods on them, and that's not amazing, but he does appreciate the extra power. If you're running some other models that can more consistently do some early game damage, being able to throw that extra power his way does let him do things like that double move of throw that we've mentioned a few times now. So definitely nice options that he kind of gains in the early game with X-Men Blue here. But I think he prefers the Professor X and Storm leaderships over Cyclops most of the time. Professor X just being once per turn when an allied character spends one or more power to use an active or reactive superpower. After the effect is resolved, another allied character may gain one. This is great for Beast. I mean, you load him up with a power from somebody else doing something, he's going to move on up, he's going to throw someone off of a point, he's going to pass the power over to someone else, and then as the game goes on, he's got those defensive rerolls, so he's giving out power to other members of your team, just rerolling even just one of his own dice. And I've totally seen X-Men players before under Xavier be like, I'm going to reroll a die, not because I need to, but because I want to pass a power around, and I'm basically now playing Inhumans at home. And it's kind of funny how sometimes they can kind of play each other's affiliation with some of their abilities. So yeah, definitely some kind of neat things you can do with Beast of just like, I rolled 4 dice, I blocked 3, and you only had 3 hits. Well, I'm going to reroll this 4th one because, I don't know, Professor X wants a power because he wants to do something on his turn or something like that. So you kind of get that cool thing. And then you also have access to Professor's Guidance, which is really, really nice, just being able to stack some rerolls on Beast if you want the extra defensive tech there. So definitely a nice little extra thing you can do with them. Last but certainly not least for X-Men is going to be the Storm leadership, and Storm's leadership is also fantastic for him. First of all, under Storm's leadership, he's going to become a safe grab because he can use the first class card to not have to pay power to pick up objectives, and then he can use the Storm Hop, placing himself within 2 of an allied character, and just kind of run up the board, within 1 of an allied character, and then just kind of run up the board, grab an objective, and retreat safely. So he definitely has some cool options in X-Men Gold for some early game plays. Of course, you know, being a safe grab in X-Men Gold is not a particularly rare thing, but it's always worth noting. And then additionally, if they're attacking you outside of range 2, he gets to reroll 1 of his defense dice, and that's also pretty nice for him. Again, stacking rerolls turns out is pretty good. Last but not least for affiliations is, of course, Servants of the Apocalypse, where we're going to be talking about the 2 Apocalypse cards he could have being Pestilence and War. Now, full disclosure, I have not played actually pretty much any Apocalypse myself, so I don't have much experience with this, so I don't know which one he generally prefers, so I'm going to be kind of going off of just my initial judgments here. But the first one is going to be Pestilence, where he has the Consuming Blight superpower. This is a 2-cost active. For each enemy character within range 2, choose one of the following effects. If that character has Poison, Root, or Slow, it suffers 1 damage, or you can give them Poison, Root, or Slow. And then the super can only use once per turn. So this is a neat one for him. I mean, if he's not too power hungry, being able to just kind of be like, I'm throwing out conditions, you know, I'm going to like walk over to this point, I'm going to throw, you know, Root or Slow or something annoying on you, and then I'm going to throw you away. So now, you know, I've effectively staggered you because now you have to come back to this point, and maybe because of the Root, you can't use a charge to do it, or the Slow, you know, you're not going to be able to do what you wanted to do originally with your turn. So you kind of get some cool options with him there if you have the power. And then, of course, at the end of this character's activation, you're going to gain 1 evolution token for each enemy character that gain 1 or more conditions. He does hand out a bleed on his spender, but that's kind of it. So he doesn't hand out a crazy amount of conditions outside of the Consuming Blight superpower, but it is definitely a neat superpower for him to have access to. The next one here is the War Horseman card, and this gives you the Fury superpower. During the next attack made by this character this turn, the target character is within range 2. This character may change 1 die result to a hit for each crit or wild in the attack roll. And this is going to be a 2-cost, and generally speaking, I think this one's definitely worse for him. Most of the time he wants to be attacking from range 3 anyway, so he's not going to be able to use this, and he's not really a damage dealing piece. That's not really his main goal, and I mean, you can definitely use this superpower to kind of become a damage dealing piece for a turn, but I don't think it's his main role, and with Horsemen of War being all about dealing or receiving damage, that's also just not kind of his thing. Like, he's not really great at that, so yeah, I definitely think between the 2, you definitely want to lean towards Pestilence. Maybe I'm totally off base here. Any Apocalypse players, definitely let me know if your team War all the way for Beast. But I definitely think he plays a really cool Pestilence where you can kind of do this like, I'm going to walk forward, I'm going to slow or root or whatever you, and then I'm going to throw you away, and then I'm going to walk away. I'm out of here because I'm a medium mover, medium base, and you're not catching me anymore. You're slowed. So something like that could definitely be kind of fun. As for the leadership itself, I mean, if I remember how this leadership works correctly, because there's a lot going on, he does get access to like the rerolls from those apocalypse tokens. So that's definitely something you kind of, or evolution tokens, I think. That's definitely something you can kind of take advantage of. Stacking rerolls is always good, and yeah, I think he makes a half decent pestilence here. As far as other affiliations go, I think there's kind of two main things that Beast is looking for. The first one's going to be anything that'll help him stack his rerolls, particularly rerolls that he can kind of reuse over and over again. And then the other thing he's going to be looking for is going to be power. Just a little bit of extra power here and there is quite nice for him. He does have decent power generation with the rolling skulls giving him power, but being able to do like kind of some of his turn one shenanigans and stuff like that definitely feels really, really good for him. So the first places I kind of think of are actually Web Warriors. I think he plays a really interesting game in Web Warriors. Of course, the problem here being that they have so many really good threes already, but I do think he plays right into their playstyle. He's relatively fast, he's going to run around, he's going to be able to throw people off points and things like that, and then he's going to be relatively annoying to take down. I mean, he's got the ability to reroll his own dice just like most of them, and then he's going to stack with that leadership really nicely. He can reroll his own skulls too, so his energy doesn't feel quite as bad if you roll a skull, and you just kind of get some cool options there. Outside of that, as we mentioned, you have some kind of power leaderships. You know, you could do something like A-Force. They punch one of your characters. You play like a really control-focused A-Force. You throw some power over to Beast, and now he's going to get to throw someone or something like that. You can definitely do some kind of neat things with A-Force for that. Definitely, if you're trying to play kind of a control-oriented game in general, Beast is a solid splash, especially if you have kind of the tech to help him stick on the board a little bit longer here and there. So, you know, even something like Invader's Shield could be kind of interesting for him. Again, unlocking those skulls is really, really nice for him, even though he already kind of has the rerolls available to him. Similarly, you know, something like Wakanda Black Panther or Shield under Invincible Iron Man, just giving him those paid rerolls. He doesn't love paying the power for it, but if he rolls a skull, he gets it back. So it basically means that defensively, you have like a 50% chance that either you succeed, you block the thing 3 and 8, and then 1 and 8 you don't succeed, but you didn't actually lose anything for it. So you know, it kind of, I'm not going to say it makes it a 50% success rate, but it makes it not feel as bad 1 in 8 times that it doesn't, or 1 in 5 times that it doesn't work out for you. So that's kind of interesting, I think. Other places that could be kind of neat for him, something like Brotherhood under Magneto. He does have access to that throw, and if you know, you can still kind of play it as a control throw, just throw them into like size 1s and stuff like that to still be able to destroy terrain, pass some power to the rest of your team, or alternatively, just kind of focus around passing power to Beast to allow him to do the things that he wants to be able to do. Dark Dimension, of course, another one where you're just going to have some extra power at the gate, definitely meaningful for him. And because of his defensive rerolls, you can also kind of burn through your power if you need to try and avoid that extra damage. So that's also kind of neat that you can play around with a little bit. For other power options, if you don't mind kind of giving up on the turn 1 play and focusing more on turn 2, you have options like Mephisto or Emma, where you can kind of gain that power, you know, near the end of round 1 and be able to do things with it into round 2 and things like that. So definitely some kind of interesting options for him in a few other places as well. And yeah, I think that just about does it for Mr. Henry McCoy here. Yeah, I think overall Beast is a really solid objective piece for just kind of being able to say, you know, this model is relatively fast. He's going to run around all these points. He's got wall crawler. He doesn't care about terrain and stuff like that. He's going to run around all these points. He's going to throw your models off of them. He's got the ambush to kind of give him that extra bit of mobility sometimes when you need it. He can push some characters away with his spender if he really wants. Technically, on a 10 power turn, he could misplace 3 characters in a turn, which is definitely meaningful, and get some movement out of it himself. So you could kind of, you know, 3 models are being pushed out of place, but they're on 3 different points or something like that. So you can definitely have some really interesting turns with him if he's got a ton of power. And with those defensive rerolls, he's not as squishy as the 2 energy defense would make you think. So definitely something to kind of consider with him there as well. And yeah, I think in general, if you're kind of looking for a relatively mobile, relatively bulky, kind of control-oriented 3, he's a solid slot in a lot of different places. You know, he's definitely got some competition there. There's a handful of other models that also play kind of the control game at low threat pretty well, but he definitely works really well, especially where he's affiliated or where you can kind of go in with a game plan and say, this is how he's going to do his thing. He's going to get to do all these cool things. Medium base, medium move is definitely a big factor in that as well. He's going to be really, really effective on things like pay to flips as well. Just being able to kind of say, I'm gonna rotate these points super fast. I'm going to throw points models off of them, and I'm going to, as long as they're not energy play to flips, I'm going to flip things reasonably well, especially if they're physical ones, reasonably consistently there as well. But yeah, I think that just about does it for my thoughts on Beast here. Let me know what you guys think down below. This definitely isn't a model that I've played with myself as much as some of the others in this series. I've played against him a lot though, so I still feel like I understand what he does reasonably well. But definitely let me know if there are any major synergies or combos or anything like that that I missed. Definitely curious to hear where you guys have seen success with the character. But as far as my thoughts go, that is going to do it for this character spotlight. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We do discussion focused content like this all throughout the week, and we got battle reports and things like that on the weekends. So if you're a fan of any of that sort of thing, feel free to jump on in. But that's going to do it for this one. So until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.